Welcome to 5 Minutes Alone with God. Today we're in Proverbs chapter 3, starting at verse 10 through 18. Follow along as I read. So your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will overflow with new wine. My son, do not despise the chastening of the Lord, nor detest his correction. For whom the Lord loves, he corrects, just as the father, the son in whom he delights. Happy is the man who finds wisdom, and the man who gains understanding. For her proceeds are better than profits of silver, and her gain than fine gold. She is more precious than rubies, and all the things you may desire cannot compare with her. Length of days is in her right hand, and her left hand riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and her paths are peace. And she is a tree of life to those who take hold of her, and happy are all who retain her. Reading through a passage of scripture like this is interesting in that we use a lot of words that are not common today, especially reading through a version of the New King James. You might be an NIV or an ESV, that the language has been changed or updated for more modern usage. For example, we don't use the word chastening. That seems sort of out of date. Can you imagine saying, I was chastened today? People would look at you and say, well, what are you talking about? Well, what that means, it's discipline. Correction is the concept and idea. So if you're reading through an older Bible or version of Bible and you're not sure what it means, or you come across a word that you just don't understand, look it up in a dictionary. Better yet, try to find a Bible dictionary, and you can Google these and you can look this stuff up online and you can get an explanation of what the word means. And that will be very helpful. Just don't bypass it if it's something that you don't understand. Because remember, a lot of words have a cultural definition or they're tied to geography, and it's important. They're not used necessarily in the same way that we would use them today. So keep that in mind as you're reading through a passage like this. So, getting back to why we're having a quiet time. What's the message of this passage talking about? First big concept that comes up is do not disdain or do not reject correction from God. And the second big idea that comes out of here is seek after wisdom. Choose wisdom over everything else. Those are the two main things. But those two concepts are pretty large, because when we apply those, and that's where we're going next, how do we apply this? We don't naturally like correction, do we? So even if it's from God correcting us, and oftentimes when we get corrected, we tend to run away instead of embracing it and recognizing. Correction means that God is active in our life, He cares about what's going on in our life, and He loves us. Seeing correction as a person who wants to come alongside and help us and improve us changes the way we see things. A second thing that's interesting about all this in an application sort of format would be the acquiring of wisdom. Today we are to seek material values, high education, money, a house. These are all things that we strive for, but Scripture tells us seek wisdom. Put that first, because it has a longer lasting effect upon a person's life, and it affects every area of life. A person who is wise will be more pleasant, will be at peace. Isn't that something that we all want to have in our own life? Regardless of how hectic your life is, wisdom helps you to see things from God's point of view and know that God has everything all worked out. The stress and anxiety, the fear, maybe the shame, guilt, we need to put those in proper perspective. And that's what wisdom helps us do. So there's our time together today. See you tomorrow. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 19 through 26.